there are more and more founders every day starting AI companies right now, and you've been through that. What's some advice you would give them about starting a company in the space?
Yeah, so in general, my one of my observations from studying, successful companies is that most of the time, you start companies in an area or in a trend long before they become cool. And the thing that allows you to actually win is that by the time the thing becomes cool or interesting, you've had this like running head start to be able to take advantage of the opportunity.
Yep.
So that might cause founders to be slightly dissuaded from starting AI companies today. Another way to think about this is like, for founders starting AI companies today, there's just like an incredible amount of competition. I think there was a few friends of mine were working on an idea for AI powered sales.
Yeah.
And there are probably literally 50, if not more, companies working on AI powered sales.
Right.
So, and in that kind of environment, even if you're an incredibly good product person, even if you're an incredibly good engineer, you're still probably only going to build something that's like marginally better than your competition. And so it's just really difficult to thrive in those kinds of environments. I mean, in 0 to 1, Peter Thiel writes about this concept, which is that the best capitalists actually skate away from competition.
Right.
So it'd probably boil down to I would pick areas which are not very popular, but which AI can have a large impact. And the other thing I would caution for folks in building these companies is don't try to start something that's too far ahead of where the capability of the technology is.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people, there's a lot of hype in the industry. I think in many cases for good reason, the technology is very impressive, but the models are still not good at various things. They still hallucinate. They're still not great at reasoning.
Right.
Tool use doesn't work particularly well. And so I wouldn't start a company assuming that these problems will go away. They might go away, but that's a lot to risk your entire company on.
If you had like 3 pieces of advice for an entrepreneur starting an AI company, what would they be?
I think one thing that's always good is like look where the spotlight isn't yet. Like now everybody's talking about AI. It's a hot space. Everybody wants to invest in AI, and there's still lots of great companies to be started. But I think if you're like starting to start foundational model company number 125, maybe that train has already left the platform, and maybe you need to look at other things that are interesting. Right now in AI, I'm very interested in companies that just use AI on the back end to fulfill some other business need much faster. For example, speaking to a company who figured out a way to make manga animes, like kind of cartoons. And what they figured out was that this is an industry that's dominated by very few companies in Japan because it's a super specific skill to actually be able to draw this kind of manga, right? And it's a massive business, like Naruto, which is the biggest business in manga, I think does like $12 billion of revenue every single year. What they figured out was that if we can train an AI system to just help us make these drawings and tell the stories, still, human storytellers, but just on the back end, actually making the images that makes up this cartoon, that could be pretty huge. And they did that, and they've now launched, I think, 3 or 4 different types of new IP, and one of them is going really, really well. I think it's a great example of like, you don't have to tell anyone you're an AI company, right? They're just taking the technology and exploiting it to do something you couldn't do before. So that'd be my one thing, and then I think my second thing would be if you're building an AI product, the kind of first thought idea is rarely the good ones to go for. So like when ChatGPT came out, right, everyone was like, I'm going to build a company that does customer service via an LLM, for example. It's like the most obvious idea for most business people as soon as they try ChatGPT, right? What if you could just chat with a customer support agent like this? And it is probably a good idea. Like there's just a bunch of incumbents who already have the entire platform that sits around delivering customer service via like a chat interface, and they're going to do this as well, right? Especially with this type of technology that's really easy to work with. So try and look for areas that is much less obvious. And I often think a good way of thinking of this is like, what would be really hard for an incumbent to just build as a feature in like 3 or 6 months? And that often is very much around building products that weren't really possible to do before, right? A loom, for example, is a tool that a human being can use to like cut down things. The human being could have cut down things without a loom also. The loom just makes it faster and much easier to do, right? Whereas something like a crane it's like a fundamentally new thing, right? No one human could ever lift a concrete pillar and build a skyscraper by itself, right? That provides fundamentally like something new that a human can do. I think that's a good framework for thinking about AI products. It needs to be kind of built AI first, not just an existing problem with a little bit of AI on top.